Hi there, I'm Emily Briggs. I'm one of the history teachers here at Huddersfield New College, and the idea of this session is to give you a flavour of what it's like to study A-level history here at HNC, and we're going to be covering one of our main topics, which is from paper 1 at Germany 1871 to 1991, and we'll be addressing the question, who killed the Weimar Republic? The idea is we'll be conducting a New College investigation into the main suspects. You'll be deciding who would you charge and what would you charge them with, and here they are. We'll be going through these 6 individuals, all the way from Hindenburg, the first president, all the way through to Adolf Hitler, the final chancellor, I suppose, of the Weimar Republic, and you'll be deciding, would you charge them? If you do charge them, would you charge them with murder, the unlawful premeditated killing of one human being by another? In other words, they intended to kill the Weimar Republic right from the start. Or will you charge them with manslaughter? And you might want to consider 2 types of manslaughter here. Have they made so many mistakes, they've taken their eye off the ball, and that, whether they intended to or not, led to the end of the Weimar Republic? Or have they behaved in an unlawful and dangerous way? They didn't intend to kill the Weimar Republic, but their actions ultimately led to its death. So let's begin. Suspect number 1 is Friedrich Ebert. He was the first president of the Weimar Republic from 1919, and he was president until 1925. He was responsible for writing the Constitution. Before the Weimar Republic came into existence, the Kaiser was in charge of Germany, and he had pretty much full autocratic power. He was forced to step down after Germany lost the war, and there was a real attempt to try and create a more democratic system. So Ebert wrote a constitution that would outline exactly how this new Germany, this new republic, should be governed. And there were many democratic elements to this. More people could vote, it gave more powers to the Houses of Parliament to pass laws, but there were also some aspects of that constitution that were quite weak. For example, the president, Ebert up until 1925 and Hindenburg after, could still assume significant powers. They were still in charge of the armed forces. They could still appoint and dismiss the chancellors, albeit they were supposed to choose chancellors from parties that had got the most votes in the recent general elections. But if there was a perceived state of emergency, they could trigger Article 48. That would give them emergency powers to pass laws without the Reichstag at all. And Ebert did that over 100 times in his presidency up to 1925. So he set quite a precedence for this to happen. And we'll see that happened even more in our later period. So he created that system. He also signed the Treaty of Versailles. Now, arguably, he had little choice to sign that treaty. The Treaty of Versailles was basically a treaty put together by the Allies to blame Germany for starting the war and to punish them for it. So they had to pay a huge amount of reparations. They lost land, which was rich in raw materials, and they had to cut down their army. And people were angry about it. They were angry, they were humiliated, and many, particularly the nationalists, blamed Ebert for that decision. Also, he used a private army. There was a left-wing uprising in 1919 called the Spartacist Uprising. Instead of the government dealing with it themselves, they hired a private army to put the uprising down. Is that the best course of action for a new democratic state? What it did was pretty much justified Hitler using the SA and having a private army throughout the 1920s and the 1930s. So that's Ebert. Would you charge him? Is he guilty of purposefully killing the Weimar Republic? I don't think he was. Is he guilty of manslaughter? Perhaps. He creates the constitution that ultimately leads to the killing of the Weimar Republic later on in the period. Did he intend for that to be the case? Absolutely not. He genuinely tried to create a system that would be more democratic than the system that we'd had before. So would I charge him? I wouldn't, but that will be up to you. Okay, suspect number 2, Bruning. Bruning becomes Chancellor in 1930 and he's Chancellor until 1932. Up to him becoming Chancellor, all of the Chancellors had been chosen from parties who were the largest in the most recent general election. We stuck very much to the rules of the Weimar Constitution. This was slightly different as he was not from the majority party. So we get the beginning of this kind of dismantling of democracy. More importantly for Bruning, though, he persuaded Hindenburg to repeatedly use Article 48 in this period. Between 1930 and 1932, the Reichstag passed 29 bills by voting as a majority for those laws, whereas 109 were passed by emergency decree. It got to a point where Bruning and Hindenburg basically were passing whatever laws they wanted without the assistance of the Reichstag. They also organised for the Reichstag to be dissolved in 1930. New elections led to a rise in popularity of extreme parties. The communists and the Nazis had more seats in the Reichstag. Remember, this is a time where Germany is facing serious economic difficulties, so people are looking elsewhere. But I think we can pin some blame on Bruning too. So again, would we charge Bruning? Did he intentionally try and murder the Weimar Republic? Again, I don't think so. He's beginning to dismantle it. Perhaps he's acting dangerously. Perhaps he's guilty of manslaughter. But again, up to you to decide. Suspect number 3, Papin. He becomes the next Chancellor after Bruning. Bruning is forced to resign in 1932, and Papin's a really significant figure. He wanted to work with the Nazi Party because they were getting more and more popular. He believed that by working with the Nazi Party, he could unite against the left-wing parties. So the right-wing parties within the Reichstag would be protected, and the industrial and the elites' interests would be protected. He even overturned a ban on Hitler's essay that had been put in place by Bruning, so further justifying the use of a private army. He also went into Prussia and dismissed the Prussian state government. He ruled. He made himself Reich Commissioner of Prussia. He could pass any laws without their state parliament. Would he do that across Germany? It set quite a precedent. He also dissolves the Reichstag, calls for new elections in 1932, again leading to more votes for the Nazi Party, for the Communist Party, who don't want the Weimar Republic to survive. After he's been Chancellor, he makes an agreement with Hitler that Hitler should be Chancellor, he should be Vice-Chancellor, and that should be the future of the Weimar Republic. Again, is he guilty of murder? I don't think so. He doesn't intentionally want to destroy the system. However, he is most certainly acting in a dangerous way. I'd be very tempted to charge him with manslaughter. But again, that will be your decision. Suspect number 4, von Schleicher, the last of our chancellors. He's been colluding with Hindenburg this whole time. He's one of his closest friends and closest advisors. He persuades Hindenburg to dismiss Bruning. He persuades Hindenburg to dismiss Papin. And lo and behold, he's now Chancellor himself. I wonder what his motives were. While his Chancellor attempts to split up the Nazi Party, he believes that they're becoming too influential. And he tries to collude to form an alliance with Gregor Strasser, who was a Prussian Nazi leader. He's trying to kind of diminish the influence of Hitler. Unfortunately, it backfires. Hitler dismisses Strasser from the Nazi Party, and if anything, it strengthens the popularity of the Nazi Party in Germany, and they perform well in the 1932 election. So again, what would you charge Schleicher with? Would you charge him at all? Again, certainly not murder, but you may want to consider a charge of manslaughter. Hindenburg we've already mentioned. He's the president while all of this is happening. He's president from 1925 all the way to 1934 when he dies and Hitler takes over as Führer. He, right from the start, is an anti-democratic figure. He had been in the military, he'd been a military general, very senior member, and had actually helped to run Germany during the First World War. However, between 1925 and 1930, he very much sticks to the rules of the Weimar Constitution. We see a shift with the appointment of Bruning, who was not from the largest party, and we see an even bigger shift afterwards when he appoints Papin and von Schleicher, who were not even members of the Reichstag. So never mind from the majority party, they're not even a member of a political party, and they choose ministers that are also not members of the Reichstag. We're moving further and further away from democracy, loosely within the rules of the Weimar Constitution. He excessively uses Article 23, dissolves the Reichstag, calls new elections. That leads to rising popularity of the Nazi Party, the Communist Party. He repeatedly uses Article 48, well over 100 times in a 2-year period. And ultimately, he makes the final decision to appoint Hitler Chancellor in 1933. What would we charge him with? Is he guilty of murder? Did he intend to destroy the system from within from the start? Or would you charge him with manslaughter? Either way, I think he definitely needs charging, but I'll leave that decision up to you. Final suspect, Adolf Hitler. He, right from the start, openly wanted to destroy the Weimar system. He was independent of the Weimar Republic and could criticise it openly. We see that in Mein Kampf, the book he produced after he tried to overthrow the government in 1923, but it failed. He wanted to create a one-party state, and he never tried to hide that. If the Weimar chancellors and Hindenburg had actually taken the time to read that book, they'd know exactly what he stood for. He also circulated loads of propaganda to try and get the support of more and more different groups of people. Again, quite openly wanted to create a new system. He was able to form an alliance with the Weimar chancellors. We've seen that. Papin in particular wanted to work with him to create a system within the Weimar constitution where Hitler would be chancellor. They believed they could control him. Arguably, Hitler plays each of those off each other while they're trying to, steal power from each other. He's very intelligent and pragmatic in his approach to leadership. He also, once he becomes Chancellor, very quickly kills off the Weimar Republic. He creates a situation where the communists can be blamed for being a threat to society in the Reichstag fire. He uses that to dissolve the Reichstag, pass emergency laws, ultimately passing an enabling law, which means that he can pass laws, whatever laws he wants, and the first thing he does is ban all other political parties, and that really is the dying blow of the Weimar Republic. So once again, murder or manslaughter, I don't think that one's quite as much open to discussion. I think you'll all agree he is guilty of murder. And that is our lesson. Who killed the Weimar Republic? Which individuals were more significant? Did they intend to destroy the system from within? Were factors that were out of their control what drove them? Or actually did they, yes, absolutely want to kill the Weimar Republic and create a brand new system? Thanks ever so much for listening, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.